The world of Formula One is back after this hiatus of which feels like months and months and months, but it was only 5 weeks. There were changes in regulations. There was many discussions amongst many people, and all of a sudden the race was brought forward 3 hours because of thunderstorms and Florida legislation. So the race got off, and we had a full race. And did it live up to the hype, Delucia? Was it better?
It was absolutely better than what I expected, and this is exactly what I wanted from the beginning of the seasons when they changed the regulations. I think now we're really getting into the meat of everything. The fact that McLaren were able to start the way that they did, Lando on pole in the sprint, winning that as well with Oscar in
Mm,
second. It's kind of like they started where they left off last year, but also Kimi Antonelli. I don't think we have enough adjectives to describe this Wonder Boy. He is an absolute genius to be able to dominate the way that he did. Mercedes, the way that they were able to undercut McLaren, get a fantastic
mm.
outlap, and then, just continue to dominate, even though he was panicking. Sash, did you hear the panic in his voice? He was panicking at one point, saying, I can't, my rears are going off, and Bono was just like, relax, stay calm. And just the maturity and his ability to adapt to that and to control
Yeah.
the race from then on. Oh, it was just exactly what I wanted from Miami.
Yeah, such a special word in the word of panic, because I mean the start was just chaotic. And Max, I think, did a wonder job not to take him and Charles out. And who else can spin a car 360 with 12 other cars around you and still keep it going and then carry on driving? But we'll talk about him a little bit later. But then Antonelli was on the back foot, and they didn't panic. And he just realized, he says, no, I've got a car underneath me that I can actually, utilize. And then he knew, and we knew the McLarens were going to be super fast. But it's a very clever strategy from Mercedes Benz, and yes, a flawless drive from this young kid, three in a row. Who would have thunk? Um, and all of a sudden, George Russell is the one who's on the back foot at Mercedes.
And no one would have said that at the beginning of the year, even into the end of last year. But I am honestly one of those people who is looking at George Russell and realizing that it's a long season. We were at this
Yes.
point last year with Oscar Piastri when Oscar just started winning race after race after race, and everyone was saying, oh, well, it's not Lando or Max anymore, it's Oscar to win. And then all of a sudden, when we went to Europe, it was Lando who started running away with all the race wins. So
Mm.
we're only 4 races in, but George Russell, he's got so much experience. He is someone who is very aggressive when the time is need be. He's not a fan of Miami. I think he already came into this race, being like, "Oh, I don't really like the circuit. It's not really my kind of track that I enjoy." So I think he already came into the race being negative about it. And I don't necessarily think that that helped, because where Kimi really thrived, George was stuck in a very intense battle with Piastri and Charles and Max. So I don't know. I feel like George is just biding his time. The shark will come out eventually, and we're going to one of his favorite tracks next. We're going to Canada in a few weeks' time. So, he won there last year. Maybe he'll win again this time round. It's just a matter of, how he's going to handle the pressure. But I think it's still going to be a really tight battle between the two boys.
Yeah, the naysayers will sit and say, Formula One this year, so many problems or whatever, and all races have been won by Mercedes, which is the truth. But it's much more competitive. I do think the regulation changes that they implemented in Miami were pretty decent. I think that they're pretty good. We still have a couple of little issues here and there, but I think this makes for better racing. What we've seen. There's all of the talk that I don't know, they will go back to internal combustion engines maybe 2030, 2031. But utilizing this battery 50% and ice 50%, unfortunately, was not the right direction. But the manipulations that they have made around did make for much more real racing, if we can use that, in Miami. And we saw some unbelievable scraps between certain drivers. Charles Leclerc would be bitterly disappointed. I mean, uh, a lap to go, make a mistake, then of course get penalized, get dropped all the way down to eighth position, and it just shows you have to keep your eye on the ball. Isaac Hadjar, one lap in, bang into the wall. You have to have that concentration all of the time. So I felt for Charles Leclerc. I think he put in a really, really good battle, but that Ferrari still just doesn't have that pace of McLaren or Mercedes.
No, absolutely not. And I think another person to look at for that is Lewis Hamilton. I feel like he was running his own race the entire time. Yes, he
Mm.
did get, bumped into in the beginning, and that caused a lot of downforce issues for him, especially at a track like Mercedes where you need a lot of downforce. But I think with Lewis in particular, even with those struggles, he was nowhere. With Charles Leclerc, at least we can say he was competitive. And I think that's a big up for Ferrari to go and look at that and say, well, there is a chance for us to then battle in the front, because for the longest time, more than half of the race, it was Kimi, Norris, and Leclerc, and they were switching positions left, right, and center. So at least they can take that positive from them. Yes, it was a very poor mistake from Leclerc. I felt very sorry for him at the press conference because immediately he said, this is my fault. I'm so sorry. And then that 20-second penalty was just, oh, it was kind of
Yeah.
like a cherry on top of a rotten chocolate sundae for him. It was just gone from bad to worse. And then, you know, with Ferrari, even the pace of the Haas this weekend with their engine, I was bitterly
Mm.
disappointed because we saw Williams come to life, which I mean, I think you and I are both excited. Double points for Alex and for Carlos. But I was
Yeah.
very disappointed with the Haas because they've really been on such a great run. And then all of a sudden, they were nowhere in this race. So I wonder if their upgrades have worked for them, or if it's just that the other upgrades for everyone else was just fairly significant and much better.
Yeah. Well, there definitely something has to have worked for Williams. Maybe giving them less horsepower here and more horsepower on the other side. Maybe that has definitely helped, or maybe they've been able to shed some of the weight that they seem to be carrying. So yeah, great job from them. I was very surprised that there wasn't any action taken in the Pierre Gasly incident. I thought it was completely driver error, and there was no penalty dished out, and I thought, wow, you're going to penalize somebody for driving over a white line in a pit exit, which we know is an infringement. But this
Mhm.
was this was a, I won't say deliberate racing incident, but it definitely was an avoidable racing incident, and yet nothing came of it.
And that's what surprised me the most is that they had taken so long to give Verstappen his penalty, which only came after the
Mm.
race. But the incident was so black and white for me. It was an obvious incident. They were battling back and forth for a while, Lawson and Gasly, and it was very entertaining. But to see how Lawson had turned in, for me, it was straight up a penalty. I also did feel bad for Lawson because he actually, I don't know if you noticed that, he actually stopped a little bit on track and went slower to make sure that Gasly was okay because he had seen the car flip. So he had actually stopped to look back and make sure he was fine, which I
Mm.
appreciate. I'm sure Gasly appreciated that too. But it was an awful incident, and thank goodness for the halo because that happened so quickly. And
Yeah.
the thing is, there was so much action in that moment. I feel like even the broadcaster was so confused on what to focus on because Hadjo had just crashed. That incident had then happened, and there was so much other action happening with the top three at the time. So yeah, to go back and rewatch the issue, the whole race, I really would have given Lawson a penalty going into Canada, or even 5 seconds off. I mean, the 5 seconds wouldn't really have helped, but I definitely would have given him probably a good penalty going into Canada.
Yeah, just peculiar. It was one of those moments where I went, like, there's just a little bit of inconsistency somewhere along the line. We have to talk about the big elephant in the room, of course, that is Aston Martin, probably their best finish for the season. However, what concerned me the most is the slowest Formula 2 time in qualifying. Formula 2 time car was faster than Aston Martin in their qualifying. This, that scares me horribly.
And the only positive I can take from this weekend from Aston Martin is the fact that Fernando Alonso's stint on the mediums were over 40 laps.
Mm.
And I have a feeling when they had turned to softs, both him and Lance, towards the end, it was really, again, their extension of preseason testing. I think that they are still testing out a whole bunch of things because the entire configuration, as we've said many times before, is completely incorrect. The only positive thing again that we can take from that is the fact that they were a bit faster than the Cadillacs during the race. But that's about it. It's very troublesome if you look at it from the outside in, and I'm sure for them it's not exactly, the most sunshine and rainbows place where they are either. So they're the one team that I'm not exactly optimistic about, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on it. It's just that we're in race 4 now and we haven't seen any improvements really. So I don't know. We're going to Lance Stroll's home in a couple of weeks, and he also has never had a really good run back home. I don't know
Yeah.
if that will continue, but maybe they'll even surprise themselves with some points on the board.
Oh, I think you're way too optimistic. I think you. But I love your optimism with it. But you're right. In 4 races plus a 5 week gap or whatever, there was zero improvement. Yes, they finished this race or whatever, but they were a lap down on everyone else. The car just didn't show any kind of pace. And yeah, of course, it's testing time for them, but it's not what we'd expect from Aston Martin. So when they made all of these changes, I thought, okay, there's going to be certain elements to look at that will see if there are distinguishing characteristics. And that's why qualifying to me was so, so important on Saturday evening. After the sprint qualifying, then the sprint race, which is, half entertaining somewhere along the line. They're just too short. I don't know what kind of relevance. They don't make much sense to me in any case. But then main qualifying came. And that was where I wanted to see, okay, this will give me an indication as to whether or not these regulations have changed. And actually, the times will tell us. Doesn't have to be the time that's closer to what they qualified last year in Miami. It was the times between the teammates. And all of a sudden, you saw this huge gap between Verstappen and Hadjar. And that's where I went, prior to that, Hadjar was in within 0.4 of a second of Max Verstappen. And you sat there and you went, boy, this is doing a good job. First time up against someone like the caliber of Max Verstappen. Qualifying Miami, 0.8 of a second difference between the two. Everyone else the same. Leclerc a little bit faster than Hamilton. Kimi and Russell pretty close together. Lando and Oscar pretty close together. No real differences. But all of a sudden, Red Bull, 0.8 of a second. I went, okay, the rules are definitely assisting the driver now. That was important.
And I think that was the biggest relief, I think, for me as well to see that. But also you get a bit sad because I had a lot of, positivity for Isaac and for what he's going to bring this season. I think this weekend was also a weekend to forget for him with that incident. It really just comes down to maturity and learning. But I think Verstappen is doing what he always does with his teammates, and that is running away with them. And you can't hate it because Verstappen's also kicked into a different gear where with the regulations and the modifications to it, where he said, right, this is our circumstances, let's deal with it as we've been given it and go with it. And the way that he was I think he was the one driver that I can say really maximized the defensive driving.
Yes.
Because that has always been quite difficult with these regulations. But the way that Max was defending reminded me of when we didn't have this 50-50 split. And I think he was the one that I really saw, okay, cool, we're back into driver mode now. We're not in Super Mario anymore. And I think this is a really big improvement from where we were. And Lando even said, if everyone else at home enjoyed it, that's great. It improved, not too much, but it's still too early to say. At least they're not being too negative about it. So we are making improvements here and there. And I think just in terms of the way everyone handled themselves and the way they were able to really just use the modes properly, I think that we've made some changes here and there, and it has worked.
Yeah, I definitely think there is some progress. I'm still not entirely convinced with the sort of power boost overtake mode and at a specific point, because you would have seen they would come out of turn 17, the final corner, and let somebody pass them before, and then come around and then go over the start finish line, and all of a sudden they've got extra power. It was not nearly as uh, poorly illustrated in the first three races. It didn't look nearly as artificial. But this, they've got to fine tune, and I think they will take a lot of the driver input from this Grand Prix and sit and say, you know what, actually, this wasn't bad at all. This is what we can work on. And then hopefully everyone comes into agreement and says, okay, yes, let's go forward with it. They tested the start at Miami. They said the starting procedure is going to be more of a test to see if it is workable going forward. And I think it did work. We didn't have anybody who really bogged down on the line. Those who are quick are going to be quick, and most of the time it's just reaction time. I think it has balanced itself out. Probably hurts Ferrari quite a lot because they were very quick off the line in the first three races, but I think it does balance it out a little bit with the starts of from Miami, and perhaps they'll continue with that going forward.
The other person I really want to talk about is Franco Colapinto. I mean, he just
Yes,
had the best weekend ever. And it's about time. I mean, it took him 2 years to beat his best finish ever. He finished P7 after the penalty with Leclerc, the 22nd penalty. And I just feel like maybe it was Lionel Messi who was there to give him some of that Argentine spirit to help him through the race. But he really has just found his groove. And it also just shows you that patience is a virtue, and you need to be able to just hone your craft as quickly as you can and as meticulously as you can, because where Pierre Gasly had the crash out, he would have gotten into the points as well. I just think Franco Colapinto was, again, same as Hamilton, in his own race, in his own bubble. We didn't hear a lot about him on track. We didn't need to, because he got the points in the end, and that's really all that
yeah,
matters.
and I
So
think
well
it
done to
was
Franco.
very, very important for Franco to have a very, very strong race this weekend. Just also, and also, a lot of it comes down to the belief that your team has got in you, and going, don't worry, you know what, it will come, it will come. And this one, worked out perfectly for him. And I felt, yeah, Gasly would have been up there in the points as well. But as you mentioned earlier, great to see Williams up in the points. Haas have got to find something, and Cadillac, yes, they've been finishing races, but they are, even with this 5 week gap, they unfortunately, in my opinion, actually have gone backwards. And maybe they have to go backwards to go forwards. But I'm just seeing nothing from that team at the moment that really is. I mean, it's just so average. So they've got a lot of work to do.
And they're not the only ones who have a lot of work to do. Audi have a significant amount of work to do as well, because they had so many technical issues, engine issues. I mean, at some point, I was wondering if they were both even going to make it to the race on Sunday with how things were playing out for them, because it was one issue after the other. And I'm wondering what's going on there. Yes, Sportlater got some points for the team already, but this is not the first time we've seen it. In the other three races that we had prior to Miami, we had Bortoleto not start a race. We had Nico Hulkenberg not start a race. So I'm scratching my head there as well, because you see it that there is some pace with the midfield. They are fighting with the Racing Bulls. They are competitive in that way, but somewhere something is not working because the car's not reliable. Smoke coming out of the car, brakes on fire. It's very problematic to see where Audi is as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. Yeah, they started off, came out points, looking good, etc., and also just seem to have hit a brick wall at the moment. So, as we say, we still got a long, long way to go. We don't know if one of the Grand Prix that we missed out will be incorporated in towards the end of the year, but we take it as 18 races that we've got left. We've got another 3 week. Great break again, which is a little bit unfortunate, but then there afterwards, it's just jam packed. So everyone will be going home, working out what was good and what wasn't so positive about the race weekend. I'm sure there will still be more discussions with Liberty, Formula One, and Formula One management and the drivers, and perhaps even potentially more changes that will come before Canada.